Several business leaders have often discussed the idea that money serves merely as a measure of success, implying that its true value may be limited to the numbers in a bank account. Yet, for most individuals, financial resources are vital in shaping their lives, influencing their access to essentials like food, shelter, clothing, transportation, and healthcare. While some seem to have endless wealth, others, despite their riches, can find themselves in financial turmoil due to poor choices, bad investments, or lavish spending. This scenario perfectly illustrates the life of Burt Reynolds, an actor who once enjoyed immense success in Hollywood, but later faced severe financial challenges. The question arises, how could someone who earned millions end up with nothing? As we delve deeper, we will explore the factors that led to Burt Reynolds' financial downfall, revealing the missteps and circumstances that transformed a celebrated star into a man who left little for his son. Burt Reynolds may have become one of Hollywood's most recognizable names, but his journey to stardom was anything but immediate. His career began humbly in television, where he landed supporting roles in popular series such as Gunsmoke and Flipper during the early 1960s. While these roles provided him with steady work, they did little to establish him as a household name. His first major break came in 1966, when he was cast as the lead in Hawk, a crime drama in which he played a Native American detective navigating the challenges of law enforcement. Though the show was short-lived, lasting only one season, it helped position Reynolds for future leading roles. He later transitioned into film, taking on various parts in action-packed and dramatic roles that showcased his charm, charisma, and rugged good looks. These early years were marked by perseverance and a relentless drive to succeed, qualities that would serve him well as he climbed the ranks of Hollywood. Reynolds' major film breakthrough came in 1972 with Deliverance, a gripping thriller that catapulted him to Hollywood's superstardom. The film, known for its intense and harrowing survival narrative, was a massive critical and commercial success, earning multiple Academy Award nominations. Reynolds' performance as Lewis Medlock, a tough and adventurous outdoorsman, won him widespread praise and proved that he was more than just a TV star. He was a leading man with serious acting chops. His rugged masculinity and undeniable screen presence resonated with audiences, solidifying his status as a bankable star. Around the same time, he made a bold and unprecedented move by posing nude for Cosmopolitan magazine. While unconventional for a Hollywood leading man, the shoot turned Reynolds into a pop culture phenomenon, enhancing his public image and cementing his reputation as a charismatic, confident, and daring actor. This newfound fame opened doors for even bigger film roles, setting the stage for the most successful period of his career. By the late 1970s and throughout the 1980s, Burt Reynolds had become one of the biggest and most bankable stars in Hollywood. His effortless charm, comedic timing, and action hero appeal made him a perfect fit for high-energy, crowd-pleasing films. He headlined box office hits such as Smokey and the Bandit, The Cannonball Run, Sharky's Machine, and Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. These films were not only commercially successful, but also helped Reynolds secure massive paychecks, making him one of the highest-paid actors of his era. At the peak of his career, he was reportedly earning over $10 million per year, a staggering sum that, when adjusted for inflation, would be equivalent to approximately $33 million today. With this wealth came an extravagant lifestyle. He owned multiple properties, luxury cars, and even a private jet. However, while the money flowed freely, his lavish spending habits and risky financial decisions would eventually lead to significant problems down the line. Recognizing the impermanence of Hollywood stardom, Reynolds sought to diversify his income by investing in various business ventures. One of his most notable projects was the establishment of the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater in Jupiter, Florida. The ambitious project was designed as a venue where top Hollywood actors could perform live theater for local audiences, providing a unique entertainment experience outside of major metropolitan hubs. Initially, The theater enjoyed moderate success and even became a cultural landmark in the area. However, its profitability was short-lived. After only 2 years of strong financial performance, attendance began to decline. The costs of maintaining the venue far exceeded the revenue it generated, turning it into a financial drain rather than a profitable enterprise. Despite Reynolds' best efforts to keep the theater afloat, it eventually became a burden, forcing him to reconsider his investment strategies. Unfortunately, this was only one of several financial missteps that would contribute to his eventual downfall. While many celebrities make lucrative investments, Reynolds' financial decisions often turned disastrous. One of the biggest missteps of his career was his significant investment, reportedly around $20 million, into restaurant chains that ultimately failed. Unlike his film career, which had given him an unparalleled level of success, his foray into the restaurant business was riddled with poor management, unsustainable growth, and financial miscalculations. In a 2015 Vanity Fair interview, Reynolds candidly admitted that he had made several costly mistakes when it came to handling his wealth. Beyond restaurants, he also lost substantial amounts in failed real estate deals, overextended credit, and high-interest loans. At one point, he owned a sprawling ranch in Florida, luxurious homes in multiple states, and an extensive collection of classic cars. But as his career slowed down in the 1990s, his financial troubles became impossible to ignore. Mounting debts and declining income forced him to sell off many of his prized assets. Yet it was not enough to keep him afloat. In 1996, Reynolds filed for bankruptcy, revealing that he was millions of dollars in debt. Despite his legendary status, his later years were plagued by financial insecurity, a stark contrast to the immense wealth he had once commanded. While Burt Reynolds may have been a larger-than-life Hollywood icon, his personal life was filled with complications that mirrored his professional ups and downs. His highly publicized marriage to actress Lani Anderson, whom he wed in 1988, became a financial and emotional strain. The couple had once been regarded as one of Hollywood's most glamorous power pairs, but their union was far from stable. Their tumultuous relationship was often the subject of tabloid speculation, with rumors of heated arguments, financial disputes, and personal betrayals clouding their time together. When their marriage ultimately crumbled in 1993, the divorce proceedings became one of the costliest events in Reynolds' life. The settlement reportedly left him with only $5 million, an amount that, though still substantial, paled in comparison to the fortune he had once amassed. Legal fees, alimony, and other financial obligations quickly drained his remaining resources. To make matters worse, his declining health and inability to secure major film roles during the 1990s exacerbated his financial troubles. Faced with mounting debts and an unsustainable lifestyle, Reynolds had no choice but to liquidate assets in a desperate attempt to stay afloat. He sold properties, personal belongings, and prized collectibles, including his vast collection of movie memorabilia. Despite these efforts, he struggled to maintain financial stability, marking a sharp contrast between his glamorous past and his more challenging later years. As Reynolds faced worsening financial troubles, he found himself in a position where he had to sell some of his most prized possessions. One of the most significant losses was his luxurious waterfront mansion in Jupiter, Florida. This sprawling estate had once represented his success and wealth, but it became a financial burden he could no longer manage. Initially, he put the property on the market, but the slow real estate climate and mounting debts made it challenging to attract a buyer willing to meet his asking price. Eventually, a close friend stepped in to purchase the home, allowing Reynolds to stay there for a minimal rent. This generous act provided him with a crucial lifeline, helping him maintain a sense of stability while he worked to recover his finances. However, this arrangement was only a temporary fix. Over the years, Reynolds continued to sell off personal items, including treasured memorabilia from his career, such as movie costumes, awards, and even his iconic Trans Am from Smokey and the Bandit. Despite his legendary status in Hollywood, he often struggled to cover basic living expenses. His financial difficulties lingered into his later years, serving as a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of fame and fortune. Before becoming one of the biggest movie stars of his era, Burt Reynolds initially envisioned a very different future for himself. While attending Florida State University, his primary ambition was to become a police officer, following in the footsteps of several law enforcement figures he admired. He had even begun considering a career in law enforcement, when fate intervened in the most unexpected way. During an English class, a professor recognized Reynolds' natural charisma and encouraged him to audition for a Shakespeare play. Reluctant at first, he eventually agreed and discovered a newfound passion for performing. His commanding presence and raw talent caught the attention of his instructors, who urged him to pursue acting professionally. This moment marked a pivotal shift in his life. He abandoned his previous aspirations in law enforcement and instead set his sights on Hollywood, determined to carve out a career in entertainment. This bold decision would eventually lead him to become one of the most recognizable faces in the industry, proving that sometimes the most unexpected detours in life can lead to extraordinary success. Throughout his life, Burt Reynolds was known not only for his cinematic achievements, but also for his high-profile, romantic entanglements. His relationships often made headlines, with many of them involving some of the most glamorous and talented women in entertainment. One of his earliest romances was with country singer Tammy Wynette, whose soulful voice and heartfelt lyrics had captivated audiences worldwide. While their relationship did not last, it was a significant chapter in Reynolds' personal history. Perhaps his most famous and enduring love story, however, was with actress Sally Field. The two first met in 1976 and quickly developed an intense romantic connection. Their chemistry was undeniable, both on and off screen. As they starred together in multiple films, including Smokey and the Bandit and The End, fans adored their dynamic, and for a time, it seemed like they were destined to be together. However, despite their deep affection, their relationship faced numerous challenges, and they eventually parted ways. Reynolds later married actress Lani Anderson in 1988, a relationship that was marred by controversy. While their early years together were filled with public appearances and a seemingly happy union, their marriage soon deteriorated amid allegations of infidelity and emotional turmoil. Their divorce became one of the most talked about breakups in Hollywood, with both sides making accusations that played out in the press. The fallout from their separation not only left Reynolds emotionally wounded, but also contributed significantly to his financial decline. Among all of Burt Reynolds' romantic relationships, none left a deeper mark on him than his love affair with Sally Field. Even decades after their split, Reynolds openly admitted that losing Field was one of the greatest regrets of his life. In multiple interviews, he described her as the love of his life, and acknowledged that he had made mistakes that ultimately drove them apart. Field, for her part, remained relatively quiet about their past romance for many years. However, in her 2018 memoir, In Pieces, she revealed that while their relationship had been passionate, it was also deeply flawed. She described Reynolds as controlling and emotionally complex, suggesting that their love story, while intense, was not built to last. Despite their differences, Reynolds never stopped holding a special place in his heart for Field. He often spoke fondly of her, expressing regret that they had not pursued a lifelong relationship together. Even in his final years, he made it clear that, had things gone differently, he would have wanted to spend his life with her. His reflections on their love story serve as a poignant reminder that, even for Hollywood's biggest stars, some losses are never fully healed. By the late 1980s, Burt Reynolds found himself yearning for stability in his life, believing he had discovered it with actress Lani Anderson. After several years of dating, They married in a lavish ceremony in 1988. And at first, their union seemed to embody the glamour of Hollywood. Both were attractive, successful, and adored by fans. However, beneath this glamorous facade, their marriage was riddled with tension and unresolved issues. Reynolds and Anderson had starkly different personalities and lifestyles. Anderson preferred a structured, refined life, while Reynolds thrived on adventure and spontaneity. This clash of expectations soon became apparent, leading to a tumultuous relationship. Reynolds' notorious temper and Anderson's demands for an extravagant lifestyle only deepened the rift between them. Ultimately, it was Reynolds' infidelity that shattered their marriage. In one of the most publicized divorces in Hollywood history, Anderson accused Reynolds of cheating, while he claimed their marriage had turned cold and loveless. Their split was messy and bitter, unfolding in the public eye. The financial fallout was severe, with Reynolds facing a hefty settlement that included alimony and legal fees, significantly draining his wealth. Already grappling with poor financial choices, this high-profile divorce exacerbated his financial troubles, accelerating his downward spiral. During the 1970s and early 1980s, Burt Reynolds was undeniably the king of Hollywood. He wasn't just a star, he was the biggest box office draw for 5 consecutive years, from 1978 to 1982. This feat remains unmatched, even by modern-day actors with billion-dollar franchises. His films dominated theaters, consistently pulling in massive crowds and raking in millions. What made Reynolds so appealing to audiences was his effortless charm, rugged good looks, and the perfect blend of humor and action in his roles. He had a natural ability to connect with the working-class moviegoer while still exuding the charisma of a leading man. His portrayal of the carefree, wisecracking outlaw in Smokey and the Bandit cemented his status as an American icon. The film was a massive success, earning over $126 million at the box office, a staggering amount at the time. His dominance continued with films like The Cannonball Run, Sharky's Machine, and The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. At his peak, he had the power to greenlight movies simply by attaching his name to them. Studios knew that a Burt Reynolds film was guaranteed to be a hit, which meant he commanded some of the highest paychecks in Hollywood. But as history has shown time and again, staying at the top is never easy, and Reynolds' reign would eventually come to an end. As the 1980s progressed, Reynolds' once unbreakable hold on the box office began to slip. While he continued to star in films, many of his projects failed to replicate the massive success of his earlier hit. By the late 1980s, the emergence of a new generation of action stars, such as Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, and Bruce Willis, reshaped Hollywood's leading man archetype. Reynolds' signature style, which relied heavily on humor and charisma rather than raw physicality, started to feel outdated. As a result, he struggled to land major roles, and the quality of the films he starred in declined. While he still had moments of success, such as his Emmy-winning performance in Evening Shade, the lucrative Hollywood paychecks that had once sustained his extravagant lifestyle were no longer flowing as they once had. His income dwindled, but his spending habits remained unchanged. By the time he reached the 1990s, Reynolds was facing financial instability. His name, once synonymous with box office success, was no longer enough to guarantee high-paying film deals. He found himself taking on lower-budget projects and TV roles in an attempt to stay afloat. Despite his legendary status, the harsh reality of financial mismanagement and dwindling career opportunities had caught up with him. One of the biggest contributors to Reynolds' financial downfall was his extravagant spending. While he was at the height of his fame, he believed that his wealth was limitless and spent accordingly. He owned multiple luxury properties, sprawling ranches, and an extensive collection of sports cars. Unlike many celebrities who focused on traditional investments, Reynolds poured millions into high-risk ventures and indulgent luxuries. Perhaps one of his most excessive expenditures was his travel habits. Not only did he own a private jet, but he also purchased a personal helicopter to transport him from his home to his jet. This level of extravagance reflected his belief that his financial empire would never crumble. Additionally, he spent large sums on expensive watches, designer clothing, and high-end dining. Reynolds also had a generous heart, sometimes to his own detriment. He was known for giving lavish gifts to friends, family, and romantic partners, often without considering the long-term financial impact. Unfortunately, as his career declined and his cash flow decreased, his lavish lifestyle became unsustainable. The spending habits that had once seemed like minor indulgences soon became financial burdens that he could no longer afford. By the mid-1990s, Reynolds found himself in a dire financial situation. The once wealthy Hollywood legend was drowning in debt, owing more than he owned. With no other options, he was forced to sell off his most prized possessions, including his luxury homes, ranch, and vast land holdings. His beloved Florida ranch, which had been his sanctuary for years, was put up for sale. Once a thriving estate filled with horses and acres of beautiful land, it became yet another casualty of his financial struggles. Alongside his real estate sales, Reynolds auctioned off memorabilia from his career, including costumes, awards, and even his signature cowboy boots from Smokey and the Bandit. It was a heartbreaking moment for a man who had once embodied the image of wealth and success. Despite his desperate efforts to recover financially, Reynolds still ended up filing for bankruptcy in 1996. He reportedly owed more than $10 million to creditors, a staggering sum considering his past earnings. His financial struggles were a humbling experience, proving that even the biggest stars are not immune to money troubles. While Reynolds eventually found some financial stability in his later years through small acting roles and public appearances, he never fully regained the immense fortune he had once possessed. His story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked spending and the fleeting nature of Hollywood fame. By the early 1990s, Burt Reynolds found himself in a precarious situation as his financial troubles escalated dramatically. Once a dominant figure in Hollywood, he became ensnared in a complex web of debt, legal issues, and public humiliation. His divorce from Lanny Anderson in 1994 was a significant turning point, leaving him not only emotionally drained, but also exposing the alarming state of his finances. During the court proceedings, Reynolds disclosed that while he had around $6 million in assets, his debts had soared to over $1 million. This revelation shocked many, as it highlighted the stark contrast between his former glory and his current plight. Among those seeking repayment were the IRS, his former business manager, and even unexpected creditors like the manufacturer of his custom toupees. This last detail, while seemingly minor, became a symbol of his financial decline. The man who once reveled in luxury found himself unable to cover personal expenses that had once seemed trivial. The IRS was particularly aggressive in pursuing unpaid taxes, adding to the stress of his already crumbling financial situation. The weight of his debts compelled him to liquidate his remaining assets. Despite selling off properties, memorabilia, and personal belongings, it became evident that achieving financial stability was a daunting challenge. He faced numerous lawsuits from former business associates, unpaid loans, and ongoing legal battles tied to his failed ventures. The name Burt Reynolds, once synonymous with success and charm, became linked to stories of financial distress, tarnishing the larger-than-life image he had built over decades. In the late 1990s, just when it seemed as though Reynolds' career was permanently in decline, he experienced a brief but meaningful resurgence. Despite years of struggling to land substantial film roles, he made a surprising return to the spotlight with Striptease, starring Demi Moore. While the film itself was met with mixed reviews, Reynolds' eccentric and comedic portrayal of a sleazy congressman was widely praised, proving that he still had the talent and screen presence that had once made him a star. However, it was his performance in Boogie Nights that truly revitalized his career. Playing the role of adult film director Jack Horner, Reynolds delivered a performance that was both nuanced and compelling. The film, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, was a critical and commercial success, and for the first time in decades, Reynolds found himself back in the Hollywood elite. His performance earned him a Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actor and even an Academy Award nomination, the first and only Oscar nomination of his career. Despite this newfound recognition, Reynolds never managed to fully capitalize on the momentum. While his Boogie Nights performance won him accolades, he famously feuded with director Paul Thomas Anderson, reportedly firing his agent for getting him the role in the first place. He later distanced himself from the film, stating that he was never comfortable with its subject matter. His refusal to embrace this career resurgence, combined with continued financial troubles, ensured that his return to prominence would be short-lived. Though he continued working in Hollywood, his days as a leading man were long behind him. Burt Reynolds' later years were marked by continued financial instability and legal troubles. Despite his extensive career and the immense fortune he had once amassed, unpaid debts continued to haunt him. One of the most painful blows came when he was forced to sell one of his last remaining estates in Florida, a property he had held on to even as his financial situation deteriorated. His tax problems also worsened. He was labeled a tax delinquent multiple times, and the state of California pursued him for unpaid taxes well into the 2000s. As his income declined, the extravagant lifestyle he had once enjoyed became impossible to maintain. He took on smaller acting roles and made public appearances to earn money, but these efforts barely made a dent in his outstanding debts. In 2014, Reynolds put hundreds of his personal belongings up for auction, including awards, film memorabilia, and even a Golden Globe trophy. While he publicly stated that he was not broke and was merely downsizing, the truth was evident. He was selling what he could to survive. The auction was a stark reminder of how drastically his fortunes had changed. Despite his struggles, Reynolds never lost his sense of humor. Even in his final years, he continued making appearances in independent films, television shows, and interviews, always maintaining the charisma and wit that had made him a star. However, his health began to decline, and by the late 2010s, he was battling numerous medical issues. On September 6, 2018, Reynolds passed away at the age of 82, leaving behind a legacy of iconic films, incredible highs and devastating lows. Burt Reynolds' journey to Hollywood greatness began in an unexpected place: Lansing, Michigan. Born on February 11, 1936, as Burton Leon Reynolds, Jr., he initially claimed for many years that he was born in Waycross, Georgia. It wasn't until later in life that he admitted the truth, a revelation that surprised some of his longtime fans. His family background was rich and diverse, with ancestry that included Dutch, English, Scots-Irish, Scottish, Cherokee, and Italian roots. This heritage gave him his distinctive looks, which would later become one of his most defining traits as a Hollywood leading man. Despite being born in Michigan, Reynolds didn't spend much time there, as his family relocated frequently due to his father's military career. His father, Burton Reynolds Sr., was an Army veteran who later became the chief of police in Riviera Beach, Florida. This law enforcement background heavily influenced young Burt's early aspirations. Before he ever considered acting, he had dreams of following in his father's footsteps and pursuing a career in law enforcement. Reynolds' childhood was anything but stable. Due to his father's military service, his family moved frequently, making it difficult for him to establish lasting friendships or a strong sense of home. From Michigan, the Reynolds family relocated to Missouri before eventually settling in Florida, where Burt spent the majority of his formative years. It was in Florida that Reynolds first discovered his love for sports, particularly football. He was a natural athlete, excelling as a running back at Palm Beach High School. His talent on the field earned him a football scholarship to Florida State University, where he played as a halfback and was considered a promising prospect. However, a devastating knee injury cut his football career short, forcing him to re-evaluate his future. This injury, while initially devastating, turned out to be a pivotal moment in his life. No longer able to pursue football, Reynolds found himself drawn to acting, first through college theater and later in professional productions. His early years in Florida, marked by movement and change, had instilled in him a resilience that would serve him well in the unpredictable world of Hollywood. Before Burt Reynolds became a Hollywood legend, he was a standout athlete with dreams of a professional football career. During his time at Palm Beach High School, he was a star running back, known for his speed, agility, and raw athleticism. His talent on the field was undeniable, earning him a highly coveted football scholarship to Florida State University, where he played as a halfback. At FSU, Reynolds quickly made a name for himself, impressing both coaches and fans with his performance. However, fate had other plans. During his sophomore year, a severe knee injury sidelined him, putting his football future in jeopardy. As if that weren't devastating enough, he later suffered a serious car accident, further complicating his recovery. These back-to-back physical setbacks ended his aspirations of going pro, forcing him to reconsider his path in life. For a young man who had once dreamed of an NFL career, losing football was a crushing blow. It was during this period of uncertainty that he began searching for a new direction, one that would ultimately lead him to the bright lights of Hollywood. While recovering from his injuries, Reynolds enrolled at Palm Beach Junior College, unsure of what his future held. It was here that he unknowingly took the first step towards stardom. He enrolled in an English class where his professor, Watson B. Duncan III, recognized something special in him. Duncan saw Reynolds' natural charisma and suggested that he audition for a play. Reluctant at first, Reynolds eventually agreed, and it changed his life forever. He was cast in the lead role in Outward Bound, a performance that earned him the Florida State Drama Award. The experience ignited a newfound passion for the stage, something he had never previously considered. Encouraged by Duncan and other mentors, Reynolds began honing his craft, performing in various productions while developing his skills as an actor. This pivotal moment marked the beginning of his journey toward Hollywood. What had started as a detour from his football aspirations soon became his life's calling. Acting provided him with the same thrill and excitement as football, but with the added ability to captivate audiences in a completely different way. Reynolds often credited his English professor, Watson B. Duncan III, as the most influential figure in his life. Without Duncan's encouragement, it's possible Reynolds would have never pursued acting. In numerous interviews, Reynolds spoke fondly of his mentor, acknowledging how that one audition changed the course of his future. Duncan's guidance gave Reynolds the confidence to pursue acting at a professional level. With his mentor's help, he secured a scholarship to the Hyde Park Playhouse in New York, where he trained alongside future Hollywood stars. This period of his life was marked by relentless hard work and determination, qualities he had developed as an athlete, but now channeled into the world of performance. Reynolds' success in Hollywood was built on this foundation, and he never forgot the man who first saw his potential. Throughout his career, he often spoke of Duncan with deep gratitude, reinforcing the importance of having mentors who believe in us even when we don't yet believe in ourselves. At the height of his fame, Burt Reynolds was a household name, celebrated for his charm and talent. He became one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood, earning millions and living a life of luxury. However, this success came with its own set of challenges. The allure of fame and fortune led him to make choices that would ultimately jeopardize his financial stability. Reynolds indulged in a lavish lifestyle, purchasing multiple luxury homes, private jets and extravagant gifts for those around him. His spending habits were reckless, and he often lived beyond his means. In addition to his extravagant lifestyle, Reynolds ventured into business, but many of his investments turned out to be costly mistakes. His attempts to run a restaurant chain and the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theatre failed, draining his finances instead of building his wealth. Personal struggles compounded these financial woes. His high-profile divorce from Lani Anderson resulted in a significant financial loss, and ongoing legal troubles further eroded his fortune. As his acting career began to decline in the 1990s, the income he had once taken for granted dwindled, yet his lifestyle remained unchanged. By the time he filed for bankruptcy in 1996, Reynolds had lost most of his wealth, illustrating that even the most successful stars can face financial ruin. Although he experienced a late career resurgence with the film Boogie Nights, his finances never fully recovered. In his final years, he resorted to auctioning off personal memorabilia to pay off debts, a stark reminder of the highs and lows of his life. The story of Burt Reynolds serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of excess in Hollywood, highlighting how fame and fortune can quickly turn into financial disaster. On September 6, 2018, Burt Reynolds passed away at the age of 82 after suffering a heart attack at Jupiter Medical Center in Florida. His death marked the end of an era, as he had been one of Hollywood's most charismatic and beloved actors. The news of his passing was met with an outpouring of tributes from fans and fellow actors alike, all acknowledging the indelible mark he had left on the entertainment industry. Despite his financial struggles and personal missteps, Reynolds' legacy remains intact. He was an actor who embodied the charm and swagger of a bygone Hollywood era, a man who could make audiences laugh, cheer, and admire his effortless cool. His contributions to cinema, particularly films like Smokey and The Bandit, Deliverance, and Boogie Nights, ensure that he will always be remembered as one of the greats. More than just a movie star, Burt Reynolds was a cultural icon. His legacy serves as both an inspiration and a cautionary tale, a reminder of how fleeting success can be, but also how one person's talent, resilience, and undeniable charisma can leave an unforgettable imprint on Hollywood history. Following Burt Reynolds' passing on September 6, 2018, the entertainment world mourned the loss of one of Hollywood's most charismatic and beloved actors, and for his on-screen swagger and rugged charm, those who knew him personally spoke of his warmth, humor, and generosity. A private memorial service was held in his honor, attended by close friends, family members, and former colleagues. Among those present were his ex-wife, Lani Anderson, and his longtime love, Sally Field, reflecting the deep connections he had formed throughout his life. The memorial served as a moment of reflection on Reynolds' career and personal journey, a story of incredible success, heartbreaking failures, and enduring resilience. His colleagues from the film industry shared stories of his kindness, dedication to the craft, and the laughter he brought to every set. Those closest to him spoke of his unwavering spirit, even in the face of adversity. His passing left a void in Hollywood, but his contributions to film and television ensured that his legacy would live on. In addition to his impact on Hollywood, Burt Reynolds was deeply connected to the world of sports, particularly football. His time at Florida State University as a standout running back before his career-ending injury had left a lasting impression on him, and he remained a dedicated supporter of FSU athletics throughout his life. He frequently attended games, mentored young players, and even contributed financially to the program. This connection was evident at his memorial, where figures from the sports world came to pay their respects. Florida State University football coach Bobby Bowden, who had long admired Reynolds' passion for the game, attended the service. Analyst and former FSU assistant coach Lee Corso, as well as former NFL quarterback Doug Flutie, were also present. Their attendance underscored just how deeply Reynolds had influenced and remained involved in sports even after his playing days were long behind him. For many, Reynolds was more than just an actor. He was an athlete at heart, a competitor who carried the discipline and camaraderie of the sports world into his Hollywood career. His ability to blend the rugged, all-American appeal of an athlete with the charm of a leading man was one of the reasons he resonated so strongly with audiences for decades. After his passing, Burt Reynolds was cremated, and his ashes were entrusted to his niece, Nancy Lee Brown Hess. As one of his closest family members, she took on the responsibility of ensuring that his final wishes were honored. Reynolds had always been deeply thoughtful about his legacy, and even in his later years, he had expressed a desire for a final resting place that would reflect his life and contributions. Nancy Lee Brown Hess carefully considered how to best honor her uncle's memory, ultimately making decisions that aligned with the respect and admiration he had earned throughout his career. While many fans hoped for a public tribute, his family initially chose to keep the details of his final resting place private, focusing on personal remembrance rather than spectacle. This choice allowed them to celebrate his life in a way that felt intimate and meaningful, preserving the essence of who he was and the impact he had on those who loved him. The care taken by Nancy Lee Brown Hess in managing his ashes reflects the deep bond they shared and the love that continues to surround his memory. Although Reynolds was cremated in 2018, it wasn't until February 11th, 2021, on what would have been his 85th birthday, that he was laid to rest at the legendary Hollywood Forever Cemetery. This cemetery, a final resting place for many of Hollywood's greatest icons, became the site where fans could come to pay their respects. The decision to place Reynolds among Hollywood's elite was a fitting tribute. Surrounded by the likes of Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney, and Rudolph Valentino, Reynolds' final resting place cemented his status as a true entertainment legend. His burial at Hollywood Forever Cemetery ensured that his fans, those who had adored him in Smokey and The Bandit, Deliverance, and Boogie Nights, had a place to honor and remember his impact on film history. For many, the delayed interment was symbolic of Reynolds' unconventional life. He had never followed a straight path to success, often taking unexpected detours, enduring setbacks, and yet always finding his way back. His final placement in Hollywood Forever Cemetery was not just a burial. It was the completion of a journey, one that had begun with a young man who once dreamed of playing football, and ended with a legendary actor whose films would live on forever. To further commemorate Reynolds' legacy, a bronze bust of the actor was placed at Hollywood Forever Cemetery in September 2021. The tribute, unveiled 3 years after his passing, stands as a permanent reminder of his contributions to film and television. The sculpted likeness of Reynolds captures his unmistakable grin, the twinkle in his eye, and the effortless confidence that made him one of Hollywood's most beloved stars. The placement of the bust ensures that his legacy would not only be remembered in film reels and nostalgic stories, but also in a physical tribute where fans could come to celebrate his life and career. Visitors from all over the world continue to stop by his memorial, leaving flowers, notes, and small mementos as a way of expressing gratitude for the joy and entertainment he brought to millions. Reynolds' enduring appeal is evident in the continued popularity of his films. Whether it's Smokey and the Bandit bringing laughter to new generations, Deliverance reminding audiences of his dramatic range, or Boogie Nights serving as a testament to his undeniable talent, his work remains timeless. The bronze bust serves as a tribute not just to an actor, but to an icon who left an indelible mark on Hollywood. Burt Reynolds, once a Hollywood icon, faced a dramatic fall from grace that left him financially devastated. Despite earning millions during his peak, his lavish lifestyle and poor financial decisions led to significant losses. Reynolds was known for his extravagant spending on cars, homes, and a lifestyle that many would envy. However, These choices came with consequences. He invested in projects that did not yield returns and faced legal battles that drained his resources. Additionally, the changing landscape of Hollywood and a decline in roles contributed to his financial struggles. As he aged, the pressure to maintain his previous lifestyle only intensified, leading to further debt. Ultimately, Reynolds' financial mismanagement meant that he left little for his son, a stark contrast to the wealth he once enjoyed. His story serves as a cautionary tale about the fleeting nature of fame and fortune, reminding us that financial stability requires careful planning and wise choices.